welcome to the Oldhammer Podcast, where life meets the mats. My name is Sam. As always, I'm here with my good buddy Gordon. Gordon, how you doing?
I'm doing really good today, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, buds. What are we talking about today?
Well, I think we're going to start off where we left off last time with talking about the stand-up game, the takedowns, or lack thereof in most jiu-jitsu places. But I've been looking around for a while, and I think I found a place that's the complete opposite that caters to, at least makes it a priority, a part of the priorities of their school to incorporate stand-up.
Yeah, you seem to have found a place that sort of incorporates all the things that we're looking for in no-gi. And I gotta say, in looking around in my area, it's hard to find that. It's in, I'm gonna say in BC. I don't know about back east or down south. There's probably more availability of no-gi places. But from what I'm looking for, just for scheduling, for training, like we were talking about with stand-up, it doesn't seem to be a priority or kind of on the radar for most schools. So what did you find, though?
Yeah, so, we've been training, just you and me, trying to get back in jiu-jitsu shape so that when we go back to the academy of whatever academy that we choose, we're going to be, trainable rather than trying to survive and just trying to get in shape for jiu-jitsu. We'll be in shape. And I stumbled upon this place a little while back called Factory Fresh. And I think they used to be affiliated with Alliance Jiu-Jitsu. And I know there's one near your place. And anyways, I didn't really take a good look at their schedule. I just took a bit of a glance a little while back. I was like, oh, it's a pretty good schedule. But then I finally checked it more in depth, and I realized that it's way better than I thought. They're super accommodating to no-gi. In fact, there's only 3 no-gi classes. I'm sorry, there's only 3 gi classes, and the rest is no-gi. Like, there's 6 a.m. classes, there's 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. I think that's like a Monday to Friday thing. And they have, after that, they have wrestling. They have something called Wrestling Takedown Academy. And that's right after the last class of Jiu-Jitsu. I think that's on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And they have a pure wrestling class from the looks of it, on a Thursday, an hour and a half of pure wrestling. And then on the weekend, they have open mat, and they have another hour of takedown academy. So they take takedown seriously, and it's part of a pillar in their gym and their style of jiu-jitsu. And then last time we talked about how there's most places in jiu-jitsu, gi or no gi, it's just individual moves, right? It's and then you have to create your own system almost. It's complete trial and error, and it's kind of ambiguous of how to if I miss this armbar, what's the transition to get out of this? And it's another move to another move rather than a move and then a concept to concentrate on, and then you can improve on those moves later on. This place is very different. They boldly claim on the website that they're a system-based place, and all the things I just said, they do the opposite of. It's system. They got systems and concepts, number one, and then they got takedowns. So all those things that we were complaining last time on the previous podcast, it's not there. And the scheduling is fantastic for a guy who works night shift. I work 70% of the time night shift. I get to go to a 6 a.m. class, or I can go to 12 p.m. and I can go to a 6 p.m. class. It's no-gi, whereas I don't have I think in your case it's one no-gi class every other day at the specific time, and then no takedowns.
Yeah, no, the places I've been looking at definitely focus on the gi more than the no-gi. If they do have no-gi classes, it's usually at a weird time that nobody can make. I don't know who's actually going to be in that class, because it's obviously not focused on that system. And I mean, the ones I'm looking at probably follow the old school version of teaching versus what sounds like you is the more the new school. So I'm gonna definitely try them out, but I don't know if I'm gonna like the vibe, if I'm gonna obviously whenever you're going to someplace new, the people that are there, you may or may not get along with. You may
Yeah.
not, feel competitive with,
Sure.
or they may not be accepting because jiu-jitsu schools are a funny place because
Very
they
politics for sure.
yeah, there's definitely politics involved, but there's also sort of like sort of like cliques, right?
Oh yeah.
And depending on the school that you go to, if you're at one of the more new age schools that are like concept based, that are pretty open, they're like it's a learning environment, you can get people who don't care where you trained before or care if you go somewhere else to train, or if you bring them something that's a new move or something. You're like, hey man, I learned this by watching YouTube shorts. They could be very accepting of that and be like, that's cool, man. Or whereas more like where we came from, it is a little more. You are within the club and you are not supposed to be outside of the club type things. It's very loyalty driven. You are part of this team even though fighting is essentially an individual sport. So
Yeah, for sure. There was where we trained before. The it was a lot of like us against them, whoever them was. Them was everybody else that we competed. And you know what? Competitively, I felt like it gave us an edge. Mentally, like you're thinking it's us versus them, but the downside was in training. It was like, man, rolling was always competitive. Everybody loves rolling, but then it's like, some people say like when you go to train whatever combat sport you do, you should be nervous. I'm like you can have some anxiety, the social anxiety, but like you shouldn't be nervous with training with this guy, training with that guy, because like you didn't want to lose, like you didn't want to look bad, or you just like this guy is just gonna clamp down, like get you in half guard, full guard, and now you go spend 2 rows with this guy, try to just pass his half guard, and it's on you to pass the half guard, but it's just like he's fighting not to lose to you, and you're fighting not to lose to him. So it's not very conducive to like a very. It's not a good learning environment, right?
There's one guy I rolled with, and he got a blue belt when I was maybe a 3-stripe white belt. But the way he would roll is that exact mentality: is I don't need to win, I just can't lose in front of our professor, right? So he would immediately turtle. Like, immediately. No takedown, no attempt to put you off balance. Just immediately turtle, because he was good there. But that's the only place he was kind of good.
Turtle guard.
Yeah.
Like a shell, like a literal shell.
Right. So, like, you tried Darce choke, you tried hand, and he knew how to defend them all because he was good in that position. But if you got him in a full guard, like if you managed to kick him over and roll him over and he full guarded you, you could tell he's like, I don't know what to do from here. I'm just going to try and kick out and go back to turtle. And there are submissions you could do from turtle, but man, that's hard.
Yeah,
that's a tough spot, man.
Pretty big and they're pretty strong. It's hard to get anything going. And with the gi, that's my experience. In no gi, it's a lot different. I feel like it's a lot more free. It's like, okay, like I'm just gonna attack your neck all day long. Like you'll be defending. At least I can get more submissions out. Maybe we just sucked with the gi. I know I did, but like it was just something I didn't take to, but that's another thing. I just felt like in terms of the culture, like I'm sure there's tons of places that are like that, but I think more often than not now, especially a place where no gi is like the primary thing they're concentrating on. It's the priority. It's like this factory fresh place. Seems to me that they're much more open, and they literally say we are a place where concept moves are important, techniques are important, but where we have a better understanding of concepts, or at least they will prioritize the concepts, and there's a system to it. You're not going to be left trying to figure everything out. There's a certain amount of autonomy that you need to do any type of sport. You gotta figure out your style within any system, but there still needs to be a path, right?
Yeah.
You can't just jump from grade 1 move, kindergarten move, your kindergarten armbar that you fail, and now there's like, okay, there's your purple belt like transition. I was just like, oh, okay. That was really confusing. There was a bunch of moves, steps I missed. It's not even moves; it's just little steps. Because in order to do this, you gotta move your hips out probably this way at this angle. Grab this grip. Make sure that this guy's weight's on your hips, rather than we're just applying moves without any concept. The concept is that they need to have their weight to sweep them, whatever it is. Their weight needs to be over you, so you can, toss them over, sweep them. But we weren't get that. We weren't getting that. It's like, just do this move. And you look at it, it's like, well, all these other higher belts are getting it, and they're just like, yeah, just practice the move. I'm like, okay, like I don't fucking understand the move.
It's
like,
it's practice.
I understand it, but I don't know why it's not working.
It's practice the move until you figure out the intricacies needed to execute the move, which doesn't work as well. Some people can learn like that for sure, right? But it's like the difference between. Sorry, I was picturing my daughter armbarring somebody in kindergarten when you said kindergarten armbar. Just her on the playground. I don't like you. Ah! I'm like, that might happen. That might happen one day. I'm gonna get a phone call, and and Daddy's gonna have some splaining to do. But back on point, like. It's like the difference between going to high school and going to university. If you're in high school, they're going to teach you math and just be like, learn how to multiply. This is how algebra works. University, they're going to teach you, here's all of the stuff that you didn't get in high school that actually makes this relevant to your life. Right? Well, and now that you have that in-between information, you can actually start to do this thing, right? You can start figuring out how you actually fit these pieces together. And I think, personally for me, it's a combination of both. I started learning more quickly when I started understanding my goal in a certain position and knowing the moves to do. So that's a combination of concepts and finishing moves or executions, right? Like, if I'm in half guard, my goal is to either get into side control or mount. Okay, how do I do that? What are the moves, the steps I need to take to get there, right? And that's the general goal. Could I change that into some sort of leg lock? Yeah, if I'm better at leg locks, practicing. But like, that is a conceptual goal tagged to an actual tactical execution, as opposed to, okay, you're in half guard, so do this move. Yeah, but why? And where do I go after? What's the path?
Yeah. Well, on that point, when you said why, that's the base concept is the how is the technique and the why is the concept.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we know the how, but why are we applying this? It's just like,
It also gives you the ability to start to string things together. So what you were saying is you sort of had to figure out your own game, where we came from. And again, everybody remember, this is like a long time ago. This is 15 years ago or something. Like, the game has evolved and how they teach.
That's how old we are.
Yeah, we're old. That's how the game has evolved and how things have changed. Yeah. In that you used to just sort of string moves together in a way that hopefully it works out. But yeah, if you lose that armbar, what do? Bail. That's what we did. Oh, armbar's out, just bail. Bail and basically reset to one. Because there was no goal past the armbar. There was no flow past it until you rolled with the black belts who just could just keep moving, right?
And I think that the proof is in the pudding in today's, meta. Well, in terms of how fast people are progressing. Before, you would get you'll be a one-off. Somebody getting their black belt within less than 10 years. Like someone got theirs in 6 to 8 years. Like, wow, look at this fucking guy. This guy's the fucking next BJ Penn, the next Hodger Gracie, Jacare. But then now you get more of those people. Obviously, the pool is bigger now. But I conceptually, even within the gym, like there used to be only one or two guys getting the black belts in like 6 to 8 years. I'm not saying there's a whole bunch of, but there's much more of them concentrated within even singular gyms rather than just like, and overall together. And I think it's because, especially if it's a concept based pool, people just learn faster that way. It's much more faster. And you see these people now, the people think like, oh, they must be so much better athletes, and maybe yeah, but I'm leaning towards that the teaching methods are better now. There's the conceptualization of like what you're supposed to do, your priorities, right? Like so, don't let someone when they get in when they pass half guard, don't let them control your head, don't let them control your arm. Make sure you're tight, be like a T-Rex frame before we're.
Yeah, what's a frame?
Yeah, before we're like we would learn the frame, but it's like okay, it's like it was like kind of afterthought. It's like do the move, we do moves, and then when you roll, it's like okay, you ask your professor, it's like okay, I got fucked up in half guard there, like what was I supposed to do? Oh, you're supposed to frame. It's like okay, why didn't you tell me that before? And it's like, oh, you're supposed to ask questions. You ask some of the older belts, and they're just like, yeah, just ask questions and stuff. But
so,
why is it that now I can buy a tutorial from John Danaher, Gordon Ryan, whatever, and when they teach a move, they're also explaining the priorities in each position. It's like you do this move. Why are you doing this move? It's because you need to control this thing. You need to control that thing. And what happens if you don't? Because then you're going to get swept. Or they're going to be able to. They're going to get the guard back. And guard retention was like even guard retention now is like a critical skill. It's like not just like re-guard. Once you get a guard pass, re-guard. Now it's like it is a critical skill that's always been critical, but it wasn't like really emphasized. Now you got people who are like, okay, conceptually, if my guard gets passed, I just have to make sure to re-guard. So now they're thinking about maybe for weeks on end, I got my ass kicked. Now I'm just thinking about re-guarding. They passed my half guard. Now I got fight to re-guard. So now you're concentrating on that. Before it's just like you're concentrating on singular moves. Even you know what I mean? Now it's conceptual, and then within there, it's like okay, what techniques can I use? What works? What doesn't for me? And what do I need to clean up? It's like systematic. It's like okay, I do this now. I like 60%. Maybe now I can clean up and make it better at 70 or 80%. Okay, that's one move down. Next. Before you're just like floating around with fucking moves everywhere. You're just like grab a piece here. Oh yeah, that fucking works. It's like I do armbar. Oh, he stops armbar. Oh, I guess I throw up a triangle. Oh, the triangle will work. Oh, I go to omoplata. It's like, oh shit, like I'm here now. Oh, I remember seeing this like a couple weeks ago. You're like on the fly. Obviously, in a real intense role, things are like that. But then even within there, we're only going one move ahead.
At a time.
Or we're just going with the flow. It should be like systematic. It's like if I get here, I'm going to do this, and this. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to do this. And if I get here, it branches up. It's like a tree, right? It just keeps branching off every time. There's no guesswork. It's like I'm going to do this. Oops, it didn't work. Go back to B.
I got a couple things on my mind there, and one of the things I remember when I was fighting for a stripe. I think it was my second stripe. Whatever. And I was wrestling this guy who was nicknamed Tortuga for a whole bunch of reasons. But one of the things that after we were done, and I'd won that match. I didn't submit him, but because I was a two-stripe white belt, I didn't know submissions. Well, I did, but I didn't understand the path to get there. I just remember his buddy saying, who was a brown belt at the time, he's like, you know why you won? Why? Because he knew where he was going, right? But they never taught us where we were going. I just knew where I wanted to be. So I was able to put myself in that position as opposed to picking out. Once I was in that position, I had nowhere to go. I think I got him in side mount. So at that point, I'm just picking things out of the air. But I knew, I was like, well, I don't want to be in the bottom because I suck there, so I'm going to go on the top. I'm bigger than this guy. Let's get to side control as fast as we can, and I'll go from there. And I had nowhere else to go. I think it just kept going back and forth. You would try to regard, I would pass, and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
it becomes really boring and like stalling.
Stiff.
You're not stalling because you want to stall. You're stalling because it's like
well, maybe I could arm triangle him. Oh, well, that didn't work. Now I'm back in guard. I'll pass. Maybe I can arm triangle him? Right? You just keep repeating this.
When you don't know, like, conceptually where to go, what your priorities are, you just stall. Not because you're at a loss, right? So it becomes really boring, and then it's just like you're fighting the same things over and over again. And it becomes a really boring style of jiu-jitsu. Like, everybody's watching, there's like, oh, God, these two fuckers have been half guard for God knows how long. Yeah. Even worse, like fighting closed guard, and you're just fighting to open it. It's like, and it's so simple too. Like you're so afraid to do anything because like it's like, okay, like
what if he catches me?
Now if I stand up, I do like the basic, knee and butt, and stand up, like guard, open guard pass, and then you're just like. I got swept a few times in training, but nobody told me why I'm swept. Or it's just like, they're saying, you're doing this wrong, but they're not saying that, your weight's too far forward, it's not, or too far back, etc. You got the wrong grips. They're just like, you're just doing it wrong. You kind of need to do this. It's like they're not saying this is what you need to do, and you cannot allow your opponents to do this. End discussion. Even if you got the wrong grips, but they don't have what they want. You're not allowing them to get their priorities. You will not get swept. So even that alone is super important.
I think all of this kind of comes back to, if you want to think of sort of the history of jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu, for everybody who doesn't know, it comes from feudal Japan, right? So you have your jiu-jitsu, your judo, and your other, your kendo and your other aspects, and they all trained them separately. But each of these... and I'm going to connect this. Just bear with me, everyone. So, and you have all these clans, right? So all of the clans would teach their own variety of the martial art, right? So there wasn't a ton of sharing with other clans, right? So now you bring that over to Brazil, and you get the Gracie family involved. Post World War II, right? So they come over and they start learning it and developing it and becoming the first red belts, and they start teaching it to people, but they even fracture. So you've got, Carlson Gracie Barra, the family, right? And they start fracturing and developing their own systems of jiu-jitsu. So they sort of stop talking to one another. So now then you got to bring that up into North America. Now, North America has a very different style of learning at the time. It's very open, but they're very closed, right? So if you open a school, there's two things you want to do at that time. You want to develop your people. You don't want them to share secrets with other people, right? Because that's, one, going to cut away from your business and your fledgling martial arts school that nobody knows about, as opposed to karate at this time, which has 9,000 different schools. 8,500 of them are bullshit. Right? So you don't want to lose that martial art. You don't have too much recognition. UFC isn't a thing yet, right? So you're trying to teach this martial art, which does work, but it's surrounded in the North American crab pot of crap martial arts that, half of them don't work. So there's a lot of woo-woo going around, right? So you don't want to give up your secrets to outside people, which comes back to what we were saying is, when we were starting, which is much later than all of this, it's still very closed. It's still very tribal in a way, which comes back from where that came from. Like, you want to stick with the group because the group is protection. So it's very closed. It's very, you're part of the school. We're going to teach you our version of this martial art, and we don't really want you to share it with other people's. And we don't want you to learn their stuff, even if you could bring it back to make us better. Now, as you go forward, and this is why I think a lot of concepts weren't weren't taught. Because if you lose somebody to another school and they know a certain way of doing an arm bar, well, they know a certain way of doing an arm bar or a Kimura, right? But they don't necessarily know all the conceptual stuff that goes through it. And that's why the black belts at that time are saying, well, just practice the move. We know the concept because we've earned the right to know the concept. Because now we're a black belt under this particular professor. Now change that around. Danaher goes ahead and changes the whole structure of learning. He did. He just revolutionized it. And he starts talking philosophy, right?
Yeah.
To Gordon Ryan, to St. Pierre. He starts talking these philosophies of jiu-jitsu, these ephemeral things that don't necessarily seem to have anything to do with jiu-jitsu, but it's how you start to think, right? So then you bring that forward, and now we get schools that are like, yeah, we don't really teach moves. You'll learn the armbar or the kimura or the dars. You'll learn it, but we're going to teach you the concept behind it. And I think it leads to a faster level of learning because it breaks down gatekeeping, which might have been required back then. I don't know. I'm old, but I ain't that old, right? Maybe it was a required thing. So I think it's just important to remember that.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying for sure, and I agree with what you say. But like, I think personally, from my point of view, because we started Jiu-Jitsu relatively the same amount of time, at the same time, and I never really felt it that way. I was more like, the closer your lineage was to the Gracie, so our professor was like, I think a first generation Carlson Gracie black belt. So like, and he knew a lot. Still does know a lot. I'm going to say this right now. Like the guy is.
He's
like,
a genius.
Become like he is a genius. Like there's no doubt. There's zero doubt. There's no shade. Whatever.
Nope.
I want this to get twisted out. Have this like zero shade in terms of his knowledge. I think he has probably gotten more about jiu-jitsu than
we will ever learn.
When we become black belts, he will have forgotten more than we will ever learn. It is unbelievable the amount of jiu-jitsu knowledge our professor has. It still has because he's still teaching. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm trying to say, like Sam mentioned it. Like you mentioned, it's like the tribal mentality. It's kind of like if anybody's old enough to remember. I don't know. They got the new show like what's that? Cobra Kai versus like Daniel-san and Mr.
As a
Miyagi.
complete
It's
aside,
that shit, man. It was that kind of like when you go do jiu-jitsu, it was like against other people. It was like the mentality was like 1980s teenage kung fu movie, like.
As a complete aside,
their dojo versus my dojo. It was that intense, man. Like you don't train with us. We don't train with you. And the only time we do jiu-jitsu together is when we fight
at competition.
Yeah.
As an aside, though, everyone should watch Cobra Kai if you're into martial arts at all. It's cheesy, it's nostalgic. Even if you haven't watched Karate Kid, it's phenomenal. It's hilarious. It actually has some pretty good karate in it too. It's amazing. But I think it's on Netflix. Just find it.
It was kind of like that. I use that example because it's kind of like that.
You're not wrong.
Politics and then like looking back, it's the hilarity of it. It's just like, wow, like this wasn't really necessary. And then another thing about now that we're talking about the jiu-jitsu politics and like the culture of it, today it's still pretty like some schools are still pretty traditional comparatively to like the new age places, and I'm glad when I go to this place, Factory Fresh. It seems to me they're not like that. I hope it seems to me that they have a very open and culture, and something I'm going there to have fun. Obviously, I want to be a black belt eventually, but before it was so stressful training. Now I'm looking forward to training. I'm like there's it's like going to a really good school, and that's going to kind of cater to your learning. You know, sometimes you can go to Harvard, you can go to I don't know. I've never been to Ivy League school. Never smart enough to do that.
Neither.
But I'm just
Neither
saying,
have
like, you
I.
can go there and have you have great professors, the most knowledgeable professors. But if they have no, or not low ability, but if they can only teach to the smartest of people, and like, you can be incredibly smart too, but conceptually you just don't understand what the fuck you're saying, or it's taking you longer. You're gonna drown. You know, I'd rather go to I'm not gonna say mediocre school, but like a relatively good school that is an Ivy League school. You got a professor that is not the greatest professor in the world, but they can conceptually, like, they can help you understand what you need to know faster. That's more important.
Yeah.
Like, you need to understand this as fast as possible. And the problem with jiu-jitsu or any sport, but primarily jiu-jitsu, because it's so grueling, like, especially when your journey, like, if your ultimate goal is to become a black belt and a competitive black belt, especially that, like, the journey itself is so grueling that if it's not fun, if you're not learning, and you feel like you're stalling, and you're always going to stall, but if you feel that stall, like, you've been like a purple belt or brown belt for like 5 years, and you're still training hard, and it's like, I don't understand, like, what the fuck is going on here, right? Why am I getting my ass whooped? There's a fundamental flaw, not just with you, but it's with you, but why is it, like, it should have been spotted, like, somebody somewhere there should have been like, okay.
So I want to say two things here. One, you're absolutely right. If we're going to impart any particular advice on this episode, I think it's, don't be afraid to try different schools until you find one that works for you. And the reason I say that is exactly what you said about the professor helping you learn more quickly. Because here's the thing, and I heard this said before. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson that said it. It was, A students will get A's in spite of bad teachers. Bad students will not succeed unless there are good teachers. In other words, if you're naturally gifted in jiu-jitsu and grappling, and you are an A student, you can go to almost any jiu-jitsu school and you will succeed. You may not like the people there, but that's beside the point. You are going to learn what you need to learn, and you are going to progress. You're good if you're BJ Penn, right? He could probably have gone to any jiu-jitsu school. He would have picked it up. If you are not naturally gifted, or somewhere in the middle, if you're a C+, but you could get that C's to get degrees, you can still get that black belt level. Or if you're not a competition person, if you want to roll to stay fit, to have fun, to learn self-defense, I don't know, pick something. If you get stuck with somebody who is inflexible in their way of teaching jiu-jitsu, you learn my way or you don't learn. And but then you go back to the politics, and they also say, but you also can't learn from someone else and bring it here in that more traditionalist sense of school.
I don't think about bringing it there. It's like, if you go train with somebody else, that's it. Like,
you've broken loyalty.
Unless you move away, that's different. But if you're within the same city, the same area code, you better not be fucking. And
it better not be cities that neighbor each other. You better move like a state over or province over.
A state or province over. Yeah, it better be so fucking far away.
And it better be in an affiliate school that you move to. Basically, like, if you are stuck with that particular professor and you stall at blue belt and you stay there for like 2 years because you're just not learning, I'm going to say, cut the cord, go somewhere else, start looking at tutorials. And because like I said, if you're an A student, you're going to succeed in spite of bad teachers. But unless you get a good teacher, you're just gonna get frustrated, and you're gonna drop out. Right? You're gonna drop off. I'm not saying that's what happened to us, because again, no shade on our professor. He's a genius. I won't speak for you, Gordon, but I dropped out for a whole host of other reasons that had, personally little to do with the gym. I know there was some scrum ups around that time that really had nothing to do with me. I sort of just
More
heard
like
about
after
him.
we left. We left before.
Yeah, we kind of left before that happened. The reason I stopped were for, a whole host of reasons, going back to school, changing careers, eventually starting a family. Like, there was a lot in between. So again, no shade, no disrespect. Absolutely, he's a genius in the world of jiu-jitsu. I'm just saying, if you go to a place nowadays and it doesn't feel conducive to you getting better, and it may take you 3 months, may take you 6 months to find that out, might take you years, then maybe you should consider moving to a place that's more conducive, because I know a lot of new schools like this Factory Fresh, which I wish I was closer to, because I would love to go there. A lot of these new schools are popping up, and they are way more open in their form of teaching, in what comes in, what goes out, and, how you train. So
yeah, for sure. Like, I think
what I
before, like, if you wanted to do no-gi, like, consistently, no, like, I think at least here in BC, like, you will have to go to an MMA place to do no-gi, like Monday to Friday kind of thing. If that was your goal, like, man, I want to just do no-gi, that's it, like Abu Dhabi, no-gi worlds, that kind of stuff, like, never put on the pajamas, then I'm gonna need to go to a place that has gi, no-gi, because it's an MMA gym, for the most part. Whereas before, it would be like, yeah, I go to a jiu-jitsu place that trains gi, like, day in, day out, but then it has, like, one no-gi class a day at, like, some random time. Not a random time, but just kind of like...
That's the other thing.
They just kind of slot it in, whatever. It's not like now... Factory Fresh, like I said, it feels like it's the opposite. It looks like it's the opposite. Can't say it feels like it because I haven't been there. It just looks like that this is a no-gi school. We'll do gi, but that's the side hustle. The main hustle is we're trying to make everybody the best no-gi grapplers here. And in no-gi, takedowns are more important than in gi.
That actually brings up that... Yeah, absolutely. What we talked about on the last podcast, takedowns, super important in no-gi. But that brings up another point that I just want to put into people's heads. If you're going to a school, because we talk a lot about that you despise the gi, that's fine. I don't mind it. I'm more of a fan of no-gi.
I think that's
Is that too much?
Probably like... Yeah, I think I
not a fan.
Exaggerate a little bit. I don't hate the gi. Like, if I had... Listen, if there was no gi schools out here... You best believe I'm fucking...
You're still doing it. You're still rolling.
I'm still doing jiu-jitsu.
Fair.
Then I'm grabbing you and whoever else that doesn't want to do gi, and I'm going to do no gi.
Okay.
In my basement right here.
So for everybody listening, over the past couple episodes, just to correct it, Gordon does not despise the gi. It's just he has a preference for no gi, which I do too.
Yeah.
But... What I just
don't feel like paying $400 for a pair of pajamas that I'm going to be like
hot and sweaty and that you're going to get a staph infection from because
like a diaper rash
because somebody else doesn't wash it. Yeah, doesn't wash theirs. What I was trying to say is
I prefer skin to skin. Skin to skin. That's what I prefer. And then if you allow it, no shirts.
He'd wrestle naked if you let him.
No courtesy shorts. Like
thong.
School, Mark Woman's
look, if we roll and you show up in anything less than those tight booty shorts you like to wear, if you show up in a thong, I fucking doing it.
GSP approved.
Yeah, the GSP approved booty shorts, I accept. If you show up in a thong, I swear to God, I'm walking out the door. It's one thing to have you in your booty shorts. It's another thing to have your butt cheek. He's got a big ass for people. Like he was a strong squatter, a very strong deadlifter. He's got some gams. If you're, I do too. I'm a bit bigger than you, but I never lifted as heavy as you did. But anyway, that's beside the point. What I'm saying is, if your butt cheeks start flapping when we start rolling, I'm fucking tapping on general principle. What I was trying to say though was.
Even back in the day, I was the only one wearing those booty shorts.
That's true.
They were like, Gordon, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, it's about
it's flexibility.
Skin,
you can ask the
You're faster.
You're faster. You're slicker. You can ask the Norwegian volleyball.
I'm also hairless too. So like when I start to sweat and I sweat a lot, like like everybody in jiu-jitsu, but I think I sweat more than the
I
usual
sweat a
person.
lot.
And then I'm hairless, and I just slip and slide, or like you can't hold on to me.
I will
like,
say
I don't need to do lotion myself, like some people do, like out there
I,
and do lotion gate, whatever.
I will
I can
agree with this
navigate.
because on the second or third roll, trying to grab his wrist is like trying to grab a limp noodle. Like it's like and I've got a strong ass grip, and it just I just like trying to hold his wrist is anyways. What I was trying to say is don't let anybody pressure you doing a form of jiu-jitsu that you don't want to do. There, I got it out.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do the gi, because that'll happen. Because that will happen. Because that happened to you when we started. You wanted to do no gi, but they pressured you to do the gi. And that will happen at schools where if they're focused on one or the other. If you just want to do gi, do gi. If you want to do no gi, do no gi. If you want to do both, that's a lot of training, but do both. Yeah. Like the point is, don't be peer pressured into, because that will happen. That will happen. You'll be pressured into doing the other kind for whatever reason.
Yeah, for sure. Like with that, looking back, I was a young man, and it was my choice. I stayed because I didn't know any better. I was introduced to Jiu-Jitsu by this other guy named Justin Wong. Like, he was like 125, 130 pounds. I think it was like 155 pounds or 160 pounds then.
Wait, was Justin the one who busted his knee doing a Muay Thai kick on a door? Like a knee? Was that Justin or was that...
Justin Wong?
Yeah, little guy.
Little Justin?
Yeah, little Justin. Because I remember...
No, he dislocated his shoulder multiple times.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Because I remember he was rolling when I started, but then he kind of dropped off.
He had to. He dislocated his shoulder like 2 times in a year, and he couldn't take the damage anymore. It just kept slipping out, even with shoulder brace.
I'm getting old, so my memory's slipping. So I thought it was his knee.
No, it might have been after. I don't have any contact with him anymore. But like before he left Marcus, he had a ton of injuries.
We're gonna
he left like soon after I trained.
We're gonna do a whole podcast, maybe even a series on injuries prevention and recovery, because both of us have suffered. You're currently rehabilitating.
Torn bicep.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Yeah.
That was my bad.
It wasn't even a submission.
No, I was just kicking out of your cradle.
Yeah, I got in the cradle. Donkey kicked my arm and right off.
You should have let go. Good. Should have let go.
No, wait. It was like slippery. Now I've been working on my grip even harder. It's okay. I got my bicep to tear. So
there you go.
Yeah, for people who care about injuries, this is not a sport you should do.
Yeah, especially if you're starting.
If you care about your body.
If you're starting or getting back into it, because we're almost 40, injuries are going to happen. It's just, do you have a torn bicep or a sprained wrist or a headache? Like, there are definitely levels of those injuries, but love pain. Learn to love pain and be comfortable with being sore.
Yeah, especially in grappling, there's no real breaks in the suffering. It's just like it's constant suffering. Like when you're rolling, especially when regardless if you're shit or good, it's gonna suck. Even if you're really good, like if you're matched properly, you're training with good training partners, it's gonna suck more days.
That's why I always loved rolling with the 155-pound dude, because, well, not now, I'm 100, but when I was 205, because I could just lay on him, I'm gonna take a fucking break. And he's going to squirm, and I don't even have to hold that hard. I'm just going to breathe here because his cardio is still good. But I can just have him right. I just need a break. Now I roll with you, and like I get 5 seconds, and then we're doing something. And
just to like kind of go back to the whole jiu-jitsu politics. Me and Sam, we've known each other since we were like 14. Okay, so that's a long fucking time. It's been over 24 years that we've been friends. Okay, and when we were doing jiu-jitsu with each other for the 2 years that we were doing jiu-jitsu, it got to a point that he would pick my ass up, drive me there, and we would never roll each other because we were it was so intense. At least we felt it. At least our gender, the white belts, the blue belts, the rolls were so intense that we were like, I'm not rolling with you. I'm not rolling with you. Not because I hate you. Like, I didn't want to roll with you.
No, we like each other.
It was going to be like, we're gonna kill each other. I'm like, I'm gonna kill you. You're gonna kill me. And we just know, like,
I remember exactly when that started because we rolled with each other a bunch when we were starting
in the beginning.
Right? In the beginning,
yeah.
And then we were going to a class where we knew they were rolling for stripe, right?
Actually, you did. I never knew. I was like, fucking.
You didn't. I knew.
Just show up.
You just showed up. I knew we were rolling for a stripe.
I'm like, what?
And I think you knew that we were that Marcus was going to pair people up. I don't think you knew we were rolling for stripe. So we got in the car and I picked you up. And you were late, as always. Sorry, just a little shade. So I pick him up and we say hi and we get in the car and it's about a 10-15 minute drive to the school.
Yeah, about that.
Silence. We didn't talk about jiu-jitsu. We didn't talk about our day. We didn't talk about school. Nothing. Because we knew we were going to wrestle and we were going to roll and it was going to be brutal. And we got there and we sat next to each other and in like the third group, we were the third pairing and I think we might have both been two stripes. I don't remember. Maybe third. I don't remember that part. But Marcus points to you. You step on the mat, and he looks and he points to me. And we had the most brutal fight. Like, it was like two bears that
like
just grizzlies just like, hated each other. Like, yeah, like it was Abu Dhabi, and it was time to go. We had 5 minutes, and it was just, and it was up and down and back and forth and throwing and flinging. Absolutely exhausted, 100% strength. And we were done, and I remember looking at you, and you were kind of looking at the ground, you kind of looked up at me, and then I kind of looked at the ground, and like there's this tacit agreement, like we're never doing that again. Because it was awful. It made me not want to go back to class on Wednesday. I was like, that was fucking terrible.
I know some people can say that, what's that stupid fucking saying? Steel sharpens steel.
Oh, yeah, iron sharpens iron or whatever.
Now we roll with each other all the time, but the issue is that like the culture made us not want to want to roll with each other. Can you imagine like how intense it must have been? I hate using this fucking bullshit term like toxic. It wasn't toxic, but it was really
it wasn't toxic. Heavy. It was just.
It was really heavy. You can feel it. It's like okay, because all the time we were like, okay, we like, dude, like day one. Like, well, not day one. I would say within a couple months, it's like we were like kind of prepped to. You're going to compete, right? It was like,
that's the other.
Like, and not just mentioned that. Everybody. Like, and then you think it's I guess so. Like I'm there competing before in the sport. Sure, why not? Yeah. So then it's just like kind of you're being prepped to like you got to compete. Oh, they say okay, and this is the enemy, and that's the enemy. I'm like enemy, like. I thought it was just another school. It's like no, these are the enemies. Yeah. That's the culture here. I was like, anyway, I think most jiu-jitsu places were that everybody's the enemy. You with us or against us, and then you go there and you're just thinking to yourself like, shit, man,
this is war. But that also came in because that mentality was the same. We weren't friends on that night, not because we weren't friends, but because we weren't just rolling to show off our skill. We were made to be enemies at that point.
Yeah, because to be honest, like I looked up, like I had like a really fractured relationship with my father. Now it's all good, but like at that time, I was 21, and so like I'm looking for father figures, and then here this guy's telling me I can become fucking great at jiu-jitsu. I'm just like, oh shit, yeah. And there's a combat sport, so obviously like your pride, your ego, and all that stuff gets like pushed up real high, and you think like I can't fail. Not just for me, I can't fail this guy. I can't lose this role because I feel like I'm gonna let this guy down. Yeah. And he made everybody feel like that. I felt like he made Elliot feel like Elliot was probably the most technical blue belt that we ever rolled with.
Speaking of geniuses, he had an analytical mind. We would
fight him when we rolled with him. It was like life or death. Like it's like I'm not gonna let this 145-pound soaking wet white boy. Beat me. Dude, I outweigh him by 50 pounds. I'm gonna crush this guy. I don't give a shit. Dude,
I always loved rolling with Elliot because there was some because I was so much bigger than him. Because I was bigger than you, still am a little bit, but I was so much bigger than him. It was like this tacit agreement, like we're not gonna try and kill each other. because that's just not cool, right? But I loved rolling with him because I'd have to be like, well, I can't use any strength on this guy because that's not fair, and he can use all the technique on me because it'll make my technique better. But I did lose my temper once or twice. I've learned to control it much better, but I did have a temper, which comes from some childhood trauma that we won't talk about for, I don't know, 100 episodes, whatever. So I wasn't in the same position as you in terms of, well, I want to prove, my father figure that, until my dad actually showed up. Now I'm just off on a tangent. Until my dad actually showed up to a couple competitions where like, I gotta win, dad's watching, so I get that, but not in class. But my came from a deep-seated anger that was not only unresolved but unrecognized at the time, and I just needed to take it out on somebody. So that's a whole other ball of wax. So my point of advice, if you see somebody like the way I used to be and they're just angry and you don't know why, maybe don't roll with them. And if they're being forced to compete, they're going to be even angrier. So yeah, maybe that's someone to avoid for a minute until they sort some stuff out. Because I remember in a competition, I started choking a dude, and I kind of saw red. I'm really letting it out right now, but until the ref was like, he's choking, and I went, oh shit, I got to let this guy go, right? Yeah. That was a wild tangent on my part there. So, but I don't know. I think that might do it. You got any final thoughts?
Well, jiu-jitsu culture and politics. Well, I would say this: like, depending where you're living, even here in BC, it doesn't have like, there's a lot of choices, but compared to like somewhere like, I don't know, like the East Coast, Canada, or like, I don't know, California, New York, they have so many more choices than us. But we have enough choices now that, if there's a will, there's a way. You don't have to stay at a place that's gonna make you feel that. And I think if your primary goal is to do no-gi jiu-jitsu like it is ours, then you should find a place that caters to that. At least a place that like where you can go like have like easy accessibility to their no-gi time slots. Because a lot of times the places, it's an afterthought. No-gi is an afterthought, and there's like this hierarchical system depending on the system. Like, I think people knew where these traditional jiu-jitsu schools are and how they're like, where lower belts can't ask higher belts to roll, which is comes to a real surprise to me because I didn't realize that was a thing until like recently.
Yeah,
it's kind of garbage. I'm not sure if it's still the same with these places, but
well, there's one school that I'm going to try out, and I will let y'all know.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think once my bicep heals up, once the surgeon gives me the green light in like 2 weeks, I will head over and try out this new place, and hopefully it's as great as they advertise online. And if it is, then my journey to getting a black belt, commences.
Resume. All right.
Yeah, man.
Well, on that note, Gordon, I always appreciate you. I appreciate everyone here. Of course, if you like the podcast, subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. We may or may not read it. No promises right now, but we'll get to that in the future. So, on that, I guess we're signing off.
All right. See ya, guys.
Appreciate y'all. Bye.
Bye.